eso, en gracia, la misericordia. This is Sancista Brujo Luis. I get a lot of requests from my YouTube followers to do more stories, which I'm surprised a lot of people do enjoy my personal stories. So this is what it is. I'm going to do this for you guys. I was going to wait till October, but I'm going to do it now. So grab your cafecito, your café con leche. If you smoke, grab your tabaquito and sit down with me for a while. I'm going to tell you some personal stories of my life as an espiritista, as a brujo. So American people, they have two sayings. One of the sayings is never play ball in the house. Another saying is never open up an umbrella in the house. Puerto Rican people, we also have our sayings. One is never whistle inside of a house. Two, never clap inside of a house. Okay, I'm clapping inside the house, but never clap inside of a house. And three, never play games such as hide and seek in the house. Whistling, clapping, and playing games such as hide and seek attracts spirits into the house, and often it attracts lower level entities or lower level energies into the house, especially if the house is not protected spiritually. So my family, I come from a long line of espiritistas. My grandmother was an espiritista. My great-grandmother was an espiritista. My mother had the gift, but she wanted nothing to do with it. I grew up as a media unidad, espiritismo, and then into Seance. My daughters, they kind of like, they're meh. You know, I have twins, and one is more of a bruja. She has a little brujita gift with her. One is a media unidad and wants nothing to do with that don. And I'm going to say that in a story in a minute. My granddaughter, one of my daughters, who's the one who's more the bruja, she has a daughter and she has the gift of seeing los muertos, the spirits, just like I did when I was little. We realized she had the gift when she was around 3 years old. My granddaughter is going on 5 right now. We realized she had the gift because my daughter, my mother, and my grandbaby, they had gone to my sister's house. Now, my sister was renting, she lived in an old colonial house, two-family house. Okay, this house was originally a one family, but they had changed it into a two-family house. And in that house, a year before my sister moved in, there was a gentleman who lived there. This gentleman left this house to his daughter. And the gentleman died in the kitchen of a heart attack, okay? An American gentleman. He had died in the kitchen of a heart attack, and he left everything to his daughter, who was living at the house at the moment, and who had rented the second floor apartment to my sister. So anyways, my daughter, my grandbaby, and my mother went to my sister's house, you know, to help her, I don't know, clean or, I don't know, spend time with my sister. My daughter has a young son, okay? Not my daughter, my sister has a young son. My daughter has my grandbaby. My sister has a young son. His name is Samuel. And my grandbaby, who's la media unidad, her name is Isabel, okay? So Isabel and Samuel were playing one thing they were doing was playing hide and seek in the house, as the parents or my sister, my mother, my daughter, they were doing whatever they were doing. The two kids decided to play hide and seek. All of a sudden, my grandbaby ran to my daughter, and she said, "Mommy, there's a viejito by the door," and my daughter was like, "There's nobody there." She's like, "Yes, he's right there. He's right there." That freaked them out. They called me, and of course, they found out that this gentleman had died around a year or 2 years before that, and he had died of a heart attack. Okay, these people were not Catholic. They were I wouldn't even know what religion they were, but they weren't Catholic. So when this man had his heart attack, Puerto Rican culture, especially Católicos and Espiritistas, we like to give that person una novena the 9 days after that person passes. So they don't practice that. So my granddaughter described this man. He was this, he was that, blah blah blah. And my daughter and my mother, they called me like, oh my God, la nena Isabel, and she saw this. And I was like, okay, just calm her down, blah blah blah. But she did see the muerto. She saw the spirit. One thing that we are taught in Puerto Rico or in Hispanic cultures, again, like I said, you never clap inside of a house, you never whistle inside the house, and you never play games of hide and seek. And my granddaughter, she has that ability, that facultad, that don, to see los muertos as her grandfather. Sometimes it skips a generation. As her granddaughter, my granddaughter, as me, as her grandmother, great grandmother, and all the way down the line. And she is you can see her sometimes in the corners speaking to the spirits, speaking to the dead. So this is just she's a brujita. You can tell she's a brujita. I'm going to put a picture of her in Halloween. She loves all that. Every Halloween she wants to dress like a witch, the typical long hair and all that. But she saw the spirit, and they hadn't realized that they were playing hide and seek in the house, and they were hiding in closets and blah blah blah. And by doing so, they were they were attracting the energies of the spirit, and they attracted the energy of the man who owned the house, who had died previously of a heart attack 2 years earlier. My abuelita, my grandmother, my mother's mother, was a presidente de mesa. She began to develop or desarrollar her dones, her spiritual faculties, her spiritual gifts when she was 12 years old. When she was in school, 12 years old, she started having convulsions and fits, because she would fight with the spirit. She would fight with the spirits. So my great-grandmother had brought her to a templo, a centro in Puerto Rico, where they developed my grandmother as a media unidad. My grandmother practiced Espiritismo all through her life until the later parts of her years, where she started getting Alzheimer's, and that's how she passed away, was with Alzheimer's. One of the spirits that my grandmother, first of all, one of the lessons that my grandmother taught me was to scry into water, to look into a goblet of water, un fuente de agua, and to see if I could see any messages. That's the way that she me desarrolló, one of the first lessons that she taught me. One of her spirits would often speak to her through el fuente de agua and through mirrors. Now, if you know that in Puerto Rico, when we have a misa or a sesión espiritista, there should be no mirrors around. And if you live in a house and if you're having a sesión, a seance, or a misa espiritual, a spiritual mass in the house, all the mirrors must be covered. So my grandmother, had this spirit that would speak to her through the water and through the mirror. Now, she was a great presidente de mesa, well respected in Puerto Rico, knew all the prayers, knew everything, and she developed me, and she developed, other people in their spiritual faculties. She was this until her later life, when she started getting Alzheimer's. My grandmother was a feisty Puerto Rican woman. She could throw down. She could throw down with a man just as easily as she could throw down with a woman. You know what I'm saying? One of the stories I remember is that these Pentecostals, and I know all these Puerto Ricans know these kind of stories, these Pentecostals would come to the door knocking every time my grandmother was doing something. And one day my grandmother just flipped out and told them, get the hell out of here, go preach to people who need preachings, leave me alone, I'm fine. So anyways, my grandmother would have a spirit that would speak to her through the mirrors. Okay, and when the spirit would speak to her, she would give evidencias. So she would look into the mirror or she would look into the water, and when she would have a client, she would get the messages for that client through either the mirror or through gazing in the water for that client. As she got older, Alzheimer's started creeping in. Okay, now it's a sad story, but it's a funny story. The family had to remove the mirrors from the house because as the Alzheimer's started getting stronger, she would pass by the mirrors and argue, fight with mirrors. One day, my mother and my uncle ran into the room. They had this big, it was like a chest. They don't even make furniture like this anymore, but there was a beautiful chest with a huge mirror, the kinds that you could see your whole body when you dressed. And she got dressed and she was arguing with her reflection in the mirror. So my mother and my uncle, Tio Charlie, they ran into the house, the room where she was at, and who are you fighting with? And she's like, está condenada, está desgraciada. And they're like, who? And she's like, this lady right here in the mirror. Every time I put something on, she has to wear the same thing that I put on. Esta desgraciada, esta condenada, esta hijo de la gran puta, because she just had a foul mouth when she, got really nasty. So they had to remove all the mirrors, as she got Alzheimer's in her later years. But that was a lesson that we were taught, that when we work espiritismo, when we work las sesiones, spiritual seances, or las misas, las sesiones espirituales, we must cover all the mirrors, okay? Because mirrors are doorways into the realms of spirit. And when you're working a sesión, often a spirit that is not part of your cuadro espiritual can get trapped into the mirror. And remember, mirrors, that reflection is a doorway into the realm of the spirit, okay? A lot of people, they enjoy my stories, and I'm surprised, and they always ask me, please, do more videos with stories. So this is what this is for, or this is what this is about. My daughters, I have twin daughters. One is more of a bruja, and one is a mediunidad. She has the gift as I do, but she never wanted to develop this gift. She wants nothing to do with that don, okay? Which is fine. Some people do accept it, some people don't, okay? There are times, my daughter can't be in the house alone. There are times I will go out, literally go shopping. Yes, I live with a 26-year-old daughter, but she will not go, she can't be in the house alone because I have an altar room. You can't see it here, but that's where my santos are. And she will be watching TV, just chilling and watching TV, and all of a sudden the altar door opens, and she will literally call me and, papi, 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 the altar room door open. I have to calm her down. Ay, pendeja, stop being tan pendeja. I always call it, deja de ser tan pendeja. Cálmate, nena, there's nothing in the house is gonna hurt you, okay? So like I said, one of them is a bruja, okay? She's got the gift of being una brujita, a witch, a natural witch. And this one, who is la media unidad, she works very hard. She's a school teacher, and she babysits a lot. She gets paid to babysit a lot, especially her co-workers' children. They want to go out with their husband or whatever. So they pay her to, she really has no social life because she works in a school, and then she comes home, she eats, she goes and takes care of her grandmother, because us Puerto Rican people, we take care of our elders, okay? That's one thing that we do. We take care of our elders. We don't ship them into those old people homes. We take care of our own. So she takes care of her grandmother, and then on weekends, she gets paid to babysit. So I live in a town, okay, here in Massachusetts, and there's this long, winding, dark road. It's around 2 or 3 miles. It's got very little illumination, and there's another town. She was babysitting in this town one night. This was last week, actually, and so she was driving back home very late. Now, on this strip of road, there's been many accidents and many fatal accidents, especially at night, because it kind of goes like this. It's like wavy. Okay, and it's not really illuminated. It's just a lot of car accidents. So one night, and there's an asylum, there's a sane asylum, and there's a cemetery there where people who resided in the same asylum are buried. So, anyways, one night she was babysitting. She didn't really want to go through this road, but it was quicker than, I don't know how, but I guess it was quicker than going through the highway and going all the way around. So she said, I'm just going to take this shortcut home through this dark, winding road and just hope that I get home. All of a sudden, me and my partner Terry were watching Netflix, and Terry receives a text. And I see him go to the kitchen, and I hear him taking this and that, salts and oils. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm not nothing, just ignore me. Okay. Which he does that. Sometimes he'll go into the kitchen out of the blue, and he'll just start preparing things. So all of a sudden, I'm watching Netflix. My daughter runs into the house, just opens the door, boom. You can see her face. Now, my daughter, she's got the complexion of a Taino Indian. She's that dark, copper color, long black hair. Comes from my father's side. Very Taina, very Native American. But her face was pale white. And I looked at her, and I already know the look, because I've been through this 26 years of my life. She was pale, and I said, what's the matter? ¿Qué te pasó? What's the matter? And she was like, papi, papi. And she broke down crying. I said, what's the matter? And Terry's in the kitchen doing whatever he was doing with Epsom salt and herbs and oils. And she was like, papi, papi, I was babysitting. And after I finished babysitting, I took Route 110 home. And as I was driving, I saw in the reflection of the mirror a person staring at me. And it stared at me all the way home, and I was so scared. And literally, I had to calm her down. Terry prepared her a bath. She had texted him. She didn't want to text me because she knows my reply. No sea tan pendeja. Deja estar siendo tan pendeja is what I always say. Accept your gift. Acepta tu don como espiritista, como media unidad. Accept your gift, something that she never wanted to accept. She got into the bath. She didn't even lock the doors in her car. I had to go to the car. This was around 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night. I had to go to the car, check the back seat, nothing there, lock her car, come home. She was taking a bath. Terry had prepared, lighted incense the room and prepared her a baño. And she came on, and I said, Chaseli, honey, you had this gift from very little. It's more like a curse, because she does not see. She sees the peri-spirit. Let's call it el espíritu, the peri-spirit, the form of the spirit, the way it died. And usually the way they died, I mean, if it was a car accident, she will see the burnt marks, she will see the scars, and she sees the fear. And she wants nothing to do with it. We calmed her down, and maybe someday, who knows, someday she will accept this that she has, which she's going on 26 and she's never accepted. But we've all have it in my family. Many people think that having the spiritual gift, it's a blessing and it's beautiful, just like in that movie Ghost, Patrick Swayze, 1980s. Many media unidades, the gift is very hard. It's a very hard gift. Chaseli has the gift to see the spirit, the way it died, okay? And she hates it. She's a school teacher, and she also babysits. My other daughter is a nurse. She takes care of the old people, and she has always had the gift to smell la muerte, smell death, when death is coming, okay? And now that she works as a nurse, she often calls me, Papi, I smelled death. Ori la muerte. And when that happens, usually one of her clients, she bathes them, she feeds them, she takes care of them. But when she smells la muerte, usually that client or that person, that elderly person that she's taking care of, passes away shortly. Okay. This is the gift that she's always had, but she has that don of being una brujita as well. The way she started developing the gift was when she was hitting puberty around 13 years old, 13, 14 years old. And I remembered that wherever she would go, okay, as a little girl, 13 years old, she would see a person, people that we didn't even know, walking down the street, and she would see the person. Okay, one incident I remember, there was a woman. I think we were in a supermarket. It was a young lady, blonde hair. I remember it because she goes, "Papi, I olí la muerte," with this girl. But when she would smell the death, sometimes she would also see the figure. So you see me, and then you would see the same me, but walking behind. So she has this gift. Okay, and sometimes this would happen, and this would happen to just random strangers until she learned how to develop it. One story I remember is this young lady. We were in a supermarket, and we were just shopping, and she said, "Papi, this girl just passed by, and olí la muerte." Now, this was a young Caucasian lady. She was around 26, and she smelt it. I feel bad that I didn't, but I wanted to go tell the lady, but, people think, este hombre es loco. This person's crazy, so I didn't. Sadly to say, a week later in the newspaper, there was a murder. Okay, and the way my daughter described it, when the lady passed by, she saw the woman pass by, and she saw behind her her own image, but all bloody and cut up. So a week later, we had found out in the newspaper that this woman, who we think was this woman, it could have been someone totally different, but this woman died. Her husband had stabbed her to death. So my daughter, that's her gift. She could smell death, and sometimes, especially like, let's say she's going to Boston and she's in a subway, random people that she don't know, she will see la muerte of that person. So she will see the reflection of that person. So here's this person sitting down, and then close to that person, she will see that person's spirit, the way it died. And usually it's people that, this is random strangers, and that's a hard gift to have, because you just can't walk around and say, listen, be careful with that. So the way she developed, or thought, the way I can help with this gift is to become a nurse taking care of older people. And so now, whenever she's taking care of an older person and she smells the death, or she sees la muerte, she's more, make sure that the last couple of days of that person is as comfortable as possible. She takes care of them a little bit more. So that's the way she developed or desarrolló that gift. Now, being an Espiritista and a Brujo in Massachusetts, I'm of Puerto Rican descent. My mother and my father are Puerto Rican, they're Puerto Rican, but I was born and raised here in Massachusetts. And every summer I was sent to Puerto Rico, and my grandmother would take care of me. Mi abuela, who was la presidente de mesa, the medium. A few weeks ago, I got a comment in one of my videos of someone saying that I'm racist against Wiccans, which is pretty interesting, because I'm here in Massachusetts, New England, and we all know Massachusetts is known for its witches. So in my late teens, I had joined a coven of Wiccans, and I was there until I was 23, 24 maybe. and I got initiated into Wicca. It was Gardnerian. I got initiated as a third degree Wiccan in that tradition, being from Massachusetts, and Wicca is the thing here in Massachusetts. And so, being a Brujo, I wanted to learn more, about that. I have respect for Wiccans. I have nothing. I try not to say anything bad about any religion, but yes, I was initiated into third degree Wiccan, and then I just walked away from that. It was just I learned what I needed to learn from Wicca, but then I walked away from it, and I still have respect for it. I have a lot of Wiccan friends, and I have a Mexican godson who is an Espiritista and a Wiccan. So. The point of the story, what is the point of the story? During the time that I was practicing Wicca, I had my children very young, but during the time that I was practicing Wicca, I had a Ouija board, okay? Una Ouija, okay? It's something that all Espiritistas say, don't play with that, because it attracts lower level spirits. So yes, being a Wiccan here in Massachusetts, a Brujo and Espiritista, I had found in Salem, Massachusetts, a handmade Ouija board. It was a beautiful Ouija board. It wasn't a store, manufactured one. It was carved, and all the letters were carved, and the planchette was beautiful. And at that time, I was raising my twins. My twins were very young. They were, let's see, I was 25, so they must have been around 4 or 5 years old. One day, I must have been cleaning, I don't know what I was doing, when I came across my twins playing with the Ouija board. And I said, what are you guys doing with that? What do you, no jueguen con eso, don't play with that. And they're like, Papi, we got a message. I'm like, what did you get? What message did you get? And I guess it spelled out flower dress or something, dress flower dress. And I said, okay, no more playing with that. Okay, I put the Ouija board away. At the time, I was living with I would get my twins, and the mother would get them and I would get them, That night, I remember, and I was living with a roommate, so I was sharing the apartment. It was a 3-bedroom apartment. It was mine. My daughter's bedroom was next to mine, and then my roommate's room was there. He was a nurse. And so that night, after playing with the Ouija board, my kids were playing with the Ouija board, the mother called. And the mother said, Louis, tomorrow is my sister's son's birthday party, and we're heading to New Hampshire very early. Either you can drop off the girls now, or you can wake up early and bring them in the morning. So I said, okay, let me just get the girls dressed up and bring them to your house. Okay, and the story went there. So here I am chilling on the computer, 1993, who knows what year it was, just chilling in the computer in my bedroom when my roommate came home. My roommate was a nurse at that time, and he came, he worked the late shift, and he came, and it must have been around 2 o'clock in the morning. Here I am just chilling in the computer when my roommate came in, and he knocked on my door, and I said, come in. And he goes, Louis. I said, yeah, what's up? He's like, Louis, what is your daughter doing up? I said, my daughters? What do you mean, my daughters? He goes, yeah, I just saw her going into her bedroom with, going into her bedroom. I saw her hair, the black hair, and I saw her pajama with all the flowers. And I said, my daughters don't have that. My daughters, at that time, they wore, the Little Mermaid and Belle and whatever Disney princess was at the time. But he had saw, when he walked into the apartment at 2 o'clock in the morning, this spirit walk into the room wearing this pajama with flowers. So I had to cleanse the room. I got rid of the Ouija board. I've never had a Ouija board ever since. If you play with the Ouija board, that's fine. Just understand that when you're playing with a Ouija board, you are attracting lower level entities, lower level energies. You're never going to get, and a lot of trickster spirits. You're going to get a lot of trickster spirits. You will get spirits that will portray to be something that they're not. So they might portray to be a father, a mother, and there's another story about the Ouija board that I have. But they'll portray to be someone that they love, that you love, that has passed away. Usually it is trickster, earthbound spirits that attract into Ouija boards. Okay, so when playing with a Ouija board, first of all, you shouldn't be playing with a Ouija board. They market this stuff for 8-year-olds. If you go to Toys R Us, sometimes it's not a game, and you're opening up a doorway that could be very dangerous. But thankfully, being a mediumnidad, I got rid of the Ouija board and I cleansed the house, and that was it with the Ouija board. But I have one more story with the Ouija board. My abuelita, my father's mother, she passed away in 1984. I was 13 years old at the time. And I remember the night that she passed away. And I think I told this story in a previous video, I'm not sure. But I remember I was at a friend's house, and my friend, she had bought a store-bought Ouija board, okay, that she had bought, and we were all curious. We're just 13, 14-year-old kids, and we're playing with this Ouija board. So we're just playing with this Ouija board that night, I remember that, and I remembered it spelled out muerte, death. I'm like, oh my God, we're all freaked out because we're like 13-year-old, 14-year-old kids, and it spelled out muerte, death. Okay, so then all of a sudden it started spelling out a name, and it spelled out my grandmother's name. That was it. I was done. I don't want to play with this, because the name hit. It was my grandmother's name, my father's mother's name. I said, okay, I don't want to play with this no more. I don't want to play with this game no more. So anyways, it was getting late, and I said, okay, I gotta get home. It's 9 o'clock. My mom's gonna kick my ass because I'm getting in late. I'm 13 years old. I'm getting in late. When I get to my house, my aunt was there, and she was crying, and she embraced me. And I said, ¿Qué pasó, tía? What happened? Where's mommy? Where's papi? And she goes, ay, Luisito, I don't know how to tell you this, but abuelita just passed away. And your father and your mother are heading to the airport to go to Puerto Rico, you know what I'm saying? So I remember that Ouija board, and that's, I've only played with the Ouija board 2 or 3 times in my whole life. I've owned one. It was more because I liked the way it looked, but I really never played with it. I was always warned as an Espiritista not to really play with that because it does attract lower level spirits, earthbound spirits, trickster spirits, mocking spirits. And I'll never forget that. I was 13 when it spelled out muerte. And then it spelled out the name of my grandmother, which at the time it was a popular name for Hispanics, but it really hit me, and when I went home that same night, it was at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, there was my aunt, and she's crying, and she's saying, ay, Luisito, your abuelita just passed away. The first time I saw a person pasar muerto, pass the spirit, is how we say it in Puerto Rico, was when I was around 5 years old. And it was in Puerto Rico in my grandmother's templo. And the image is etched in my brain. I was 5 years old, and there was no one to take care of me, so my abuelita brought me to the templo. And I remember this woman, okay, in the templo, and she was dancing. I remember her dressed all in white, very thin woman, long hair, and I remember her dancing, and I remember sitting in the pews of the templo. And I remember this woman dancing and dancing and dancing, and all of a sudden she started, her facial expression started concording and all that, and then she threw herself on the floor and started convulsing. Okay, imagine how that is to a 5-year-old little boy. She was pasando un muerto, but she was pasando what we call un espíritu de la causa, a lower level entity or energy that needed to be worked on, okay? And I remembered my grandmother and a whole bunch of the other media unidades helping this woman, placing her in a chair and placing water in front of her para trabajarle, work that muerto off of this woman that she was passing. But I'll never forget that because it's etched in my mind. Here, I was 5 years old. Almost 40 years later, it's still etched in my mind. I remember her dancing, just dancing, and the music was playing, and all the Espiritistas were playing, and all of a sudden, she started Pasando el Muerto, and the Muerto was un espíritu de existencia, un espíritu de causa, a lower level entity, and that really did traumatize me as a 5-year-old boy, but it did intrigue me, you know, because that's just the way kids who are part of the Puerto Rican Espiritismo culture, that's just the way we were raised. If they could find babysitters, they would find babysitters. If they couldn't, then they would go to the templo, and there was a room for all the children in the templo. That's my coffee. But yeah, that's the first time I was 5 years old, that's the first time I ever saw someone pasar el muerto, pasando un muerto, pasando un espíritu de existencia, una causa, as we say in Puerto Rico. This next story, which is my final story, goes to my fellow New Yorican people, my Boricua brothers and sisters in New York. I remember in the 80s and 90s, Puerto Rican people here in Massachusetts, we would go to New York, especially to Chinatown. A lot of people would go into Chinatown in New York and they would buy knockoff jewelries and bags and toys, and they would bring them to Massachusetts where they would sell, you know, these things. Okay, so, sorry, my dog is barking. So they would sell these, you know, they would come to Massachusetts, they would go to New York, Chinatown, they would buy all these gadgets, all these purses and jewelry, toys, and they would come to Massachusetts and sell it, okay? And I don't know if Chinatown in New York is still there, so if you are a New Yorican or anyone from New York, if Chinatown still exists, let me know in the comment down below. But anyways, I remember that the mother of my twins, there was a woman who would sell jewelries and toys and perfumes and knockoff bags or whatever, but she would go around the neighborhood and she would sell this stuff. And the mother of my twins saw these two dolls that I can remember that kind of looked like Chucky. Remember the Chucky doll? They kind of look like Chucky. And so she bought these two dolls for my twin daughters. And I remember one of my daughters wanted nothing to do with Chaseli, the one who's scared of spirits, wanted nothing to do with this doll, and the other one loved these dolls so much. So I remembered I went to the house to, you know, go pick up my twins, and I saw the dolls were actually pretty creepy, and I, you know, was observing the dolls, and they were made in Taiwan somewhere. Lord knows that those Taiwanese, they practice some crazy magic. So anyways, to make the long story short, one night, the mother of my twins called me, freaking out, and she's like, oh my God, Louis, you don't know what happened. I'm like, what happened? She goes, Chanelise, my daughter, took my other daughter and placed her into a bag. You know those bags where you put the clothing in, that you put your suits in? My daughter was sleeping, and she placed my daughter into the bag and zippered it up, and was pushing her towards the steps of where their mother lived. And thankfully, my ex-wife caught her, and blah, blah, blah. I go over there, I investigate. Why did you do that? Why would you do that? Now, this is creepy. My daughter, the one that was in the bag, she wanted nothing to do with these dolls. And thankfully, nothing, you know, she's fine. She's still scared of spirits. That's the one with the Route 110. She wants nothing to do with creepy dolls, wants nothing to do with spirits. The other one more accepts it. That's the one that has the baby, who also sees the spirits. So we sat down and we said, why did you do that? And she goes, La Munequita told me to do it. The little doll told me that she's bad. Her sister was bad and that she needed to be punished, and she needed to be placed in the bag and pushed down the stairs to be punished. Mind you, I called my friend. He was a fellow Wiccan at the time. I was part of a covenant at the time. And I'm like, okay, we're going to bring these dolls to un cementerio, a cemetery here in Massachusetts. It was late at night. I remember, I don't even know how we got into the cemetery. We must have, I was in my 20s. We must have hopped the fence. It was really late at night. We dug a hole, and, you know, all my brujeria skills, my Hispanic brujeria skills just popped in, and we dug a hole. We buried the dolls. But the creepy thing is that that's creepy in itself, but my daughter she cried so much that we got rid of these dolls. But she would talk to them. She would, the mother of my twins would get freaked out because she would be sitting in corners with these two dolls just talking to them. You know, my daughter, like me, was a loner, so she would spend hours and hours talking to these dolls. So be careful where you buy your dolls. Be careful where you buy your muñequitas. You know, some of these places far away, these dolls are made in sweat factories, and a lot of these people might be brujos, might be witches, and they could be placing a spirit into these things. But yeah, I remember we brought those two dolls to the cemetery. We buried them, and my daughter was heartbroken. She was heartbroken because, you know, she could hear the spirit. You know, she would literally sit there for hours and conversate with these dos muñequitas, with these two dolls, which my other daughter wanted nothing to do with. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the videos. If you did, please hit that like button. If you don't like it, then you can hit that dislike button. Leave a comment down below. If you want to hear more videos of this type, I will try to do so. I like to do it in October or around the fall season. But if you do like this video, please hit that like button. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe so you can get notifications when I do more videos. This is Sancista Brujo Luis. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I'm happy that everyone enjoys this channel. Santo Sanse, Sancista Brujo Luis.